Welcome to Profits on Purpose, the podcast for ecom and CPG founders who are looking to scale their businesses both profitably and purposefully. I'm your host, Nate Littlewood from Future Ready CFO, where I help seven-figure ecom and CPG founders make confident, data-backed decisions that drive profitable growth, all while helping them sleep better at night. Anyway, today's guest is Brian Bethke, who's the founder of Bare Maple Farms. Brian brings a really unique perspective to this conversation. He is not a first-time founder. He's actually successfully built and exited a music industry business previously, selling to the legendary D'Angelico guitar brand. Nowadays, he's applying everything he's learned from that to scaling Bare Maple Farms, which is a clean soda brand that's already in nearly 1,000 retail stores and has recently raised a $2 million seed round. What I found really interesting about Brian's story and chatting with him is his willingness to share what's actually happening behind the scenes. We're going to be talking today about some of the pivots he's been through in terms of brand positioning, going shelf to shelf with bigger, soda brands like Olipop, and the shift he went through from chasing major retailers like Whole Foods to instead building a grassroots data-based story. One of the other things we're going to be talking about today is, the very, very real tension that comes up and exists between investors and investor expectations and the founder's instinct to extend runway and build sustainably. Brian, I hope I've done you justice in that introduction there. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. Well, Brian, I always like to get these conversations started with talking a little bit about your background story. And, what's fascinating about your background is you went from building and exiting a brand in the music industry to what seems to an outsider to a pretty big pivot to now be in the beverage space. Tell me, what was it that, drew you into the beverage space, and how did you, decide that this was a good thing to do?
I've always pursued stuff that I'm passionate about. I started playing guitar when I was about 12 years old, and I was inspired to play guitar by my idols like Pink Floyd and Aerosmith, Joe Perry of Aerosmith, and the Grateful Dead, Lenny Kravitz, all these amazing guitar players. And I thought, I'm gonna learn to play like that as well. And that started to lead me down the pathway to start my music industry company. We owned Supro and Pigtronics, were the two brands. We made amplifiers, guitars, and effects pedals. And eventually, my idols, who I grew up in, who inspired me to start playing guitar, started using those products.
Huh.
And
Awesome.
It was mind-blowing because they started coming back to me and saying, Brian, thank you for doing what you do because you inspire our music and make my music like you help me create my art. And that was the most gratifying thing I could ever imagine. When I I sold that business in 2020, and in parallel, the pandemic happened. And Nate, you lived in New York City as well during the pandemic?
Yeah.
And like everyone left the city. I have a friend who was a photographer and took a photo of Times Square. There's 0 people in Times Square. And so my wife and my daughter, who was 6 at the time, we moved up to the Catskill Mountains, 3 hours north of New York City. And it's bucolic and beautiful and rolling hills and farmland. And our trees outside of our window were all maple trees. And that was ultimately part of the inspiration for Bare Maple Farms. It started because I said to my daughter, Anna, let's go outside. We'll tap the maple trees and make maple syrup. And she came out with me. Soon enough, I turn around, and Anna's got her head under the spigot and drips of maple water dripping onto her tongue. And she's like, Dad, this is delicious. You should try this.
Wow.
And so my wife came out. She's like, what are you goofballs doing? And
we're about to start a CPG brand.
Exactly. But maple water is amazing. It's water filtered through the cells of a tree, and it takes out all the bad stuff and it stills it with nutrients and minerals and electrolytes. And on top of that, ginseng grows naturally all throughout the maple forests of the Northeast.
Yeah.
And I recognized that. And I'd lived in China for about 5 years, so I'd seen people lined up in Hong Kong buying ginseng hand over foot and just obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of put those two ingredients together, and that was the inspiration for Bear Maple Farms. And Bear Maple Farms, because Bear was my nickname growing up. That was what my mom called me.
Okay, well, it's quite the story to get here. I think when you and I first met, it was actually at Fancy Food Show a couple of years back. And at the time, you were selling or you were positioning this product as a sparkling ginseng elixir, as you just described.
Yep.
But now what you're promoting and offering is more of a clean soda. That's a pretty big change and pivot in terms of, repositioning of the product. Talk me through that, like how and why did that change happen?
I originally called it a sparkling ginseng elixir because that was, to me, it was this magical elixir from the forest. And so I thought, okay, this is what goes on the label. And it took me I spent about 2 years formulating the liquid and getting it completely dialed in. And then I went into packaging, and I've never made CPG packaging before. And I called up my friend Chris Farabee, who had designed guitars for us. He'd never done packaging for like a soda label or anything like that. But he was like, yeah, I'll do it. So we put a month or two into creating the packaging. And the next step, I went to the BevNet Live, which is BevNet Live is a conference that is everyone who's anyone within the beverage industry is there. It's the who's who of the beverage industry. And they have a pitch contest.
Yeah.
It's like a Shark Tank style pitch contest. And Olipop, Poppy, Bai, Spindrift, all the brands that have come out in the past 20 years have stepped up onto stage and done this pitch contest. And so,
oh wow, really?
I got accepted. And I got accepted into the semifinals, and I was all excited about it. And we were still a sparkling ginseng elixir at that point. And I get up and do my pitch. I was really nervous about it because I'm an introvert, and so I practiced for like 3 months. Get up on stage, and I give my pitch, and I did a fantastic job. And the judges, one of the judges was the buyer from Whole Foods. These were serious judges, and I turn around.
Heavy hitters.
They're heavy hitters, and I turn around, and it's like crickets. Something did not land.
Ooh,
and
ouch.
It was the Whole Foods buyer who says, Brian, this is delicious. You have really good liquid, and can't wait to get it on shelf, but your packaging needs work. And it's like you're calling yourself a sparkling ginseng elixir. What's that all about? Elixir sounds like something from Lord of the Rings. Are you marketing to hobbits? And you've got a picture of a ginseng root and a maple leaf. It's really cluttered. You've got all this messaging on the packaging. You've got to fix that.
Okay.
So that was really tough feedback to take. Here I am thinking I'm going to win the contest. I'm an experienced entrepreneur, and I practiced my final pitch over and over and over in the family room. My daughter knew my pitch by heart, and I didn't even get to do the final pitch because I didn't make it past the semifinal. So that was interesting learning experience. And I went home, I curled up in bed and cried, and I got up the next morning. And I called I called up tons of brand designers and people who do packaging and are really good at it. One of those people that I was turned on to is a woman named Paula Grant.
Okay.
And Paula Grant was the number 2 employee for Body Armor, which I don't know if you know the Body Armor story. They sold for like $5.6 billion.
Wow.
It was one of it was the largest exit in beverage history. So she kind of knows something about packaging. And so,
I think so.
I reached out to her. I didn't have a warm intro. I just sent her samples and crossed my fingers, and I figured I'm never going to hear back from her. But sure enough, about a week later, she calls up and she's like, Brian, this is really good. I like your product. I tried it. Let's talk. So she helped us do the rebrand for the most recent round of art. And at that point, we had become a sparkling ginseng tonic.
Okay.
And the word tonic didn't work either, because who loves tonic water? No one does.
Right.
The only time you think of tonic is with gin and tonics.
Yeah.
So I kind of needed to evolve the brand a little bit further. At the time, I was doing a lot of demos at stores. I would go out and give samples and watch people's reactions. And after 50, 100 different demos, every single person, a lot of people would say, oh, this is delicious. This is really good. This is like a great replacement for a traditional soda. And then they turn the can around and look at the nutrition label and say, oh, wow, this is really clean. Only 5 calories. I don't know how you do that without stevia and erythritol and artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
And it's got ginseng for focus and clarity. And so I just took what our customers were saying at that point and put it on the label. And so clean soda with ginseng for focus and clarity.
I love it. Well, it sounds, with the benefit of hindsight, it sounds almost kind of obvious way to do it. I hate to ask the awkward question here, but why did it take so long to get to that point? Why not have done this earlier?
I should have just done this in the beginning, right? Is go straight to the customers and figure out how they're talking about the product. Yeah. It's actually surprisingly hard to do that in early stages. If you don't have a product, sometimes the journey is you've just got to put something together and get it out there so that you can get in front of customers and hear their feedback. And a healthy brand is always evolving. That's something that I didn't always understand. But as I've done this enough, a brand that becomes static is a brand that is in the process of dying. Your customer is always evolving, the market's always evolving, and you want to evolve with it and continually refine how you speak about your brand and how you present your brand and connect with your customers.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Well, just to finish the origin story piece a little bit, and I'd love to spend a minute reflecting on your journey thus far. You shared the story earlier about going and drinking the maple water with your daughter, and you had this realization. It was a kind of aha moment. Talk me through how and when you went from that to deciding that this actually needs to be a brand or a company.
The real catalyst moment was when I was out in the Catskills, and at the time I was working with a business coach named Ben, and Ben and I had started coming up with a business plan based around machine learning and LLMs before they had become AI.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
GPT-2 was around, but ChatGPT had not come out. And even the notion of a chatbot was still kind of anathema. It wasn't. People were like, "What are you talking about? You want to build a chatbot?" And so, but I had gotten really excited about it. It was clear to me that this was going to be something in the future, and I had started teaching myself how to code in Python. And Google had a program called TensorFlow, and you could develop AI programs through using Google TensorFlow. And so that's what I was doing up in the Catskills at the time. And I was in front of my computer coding, and I'm looking out the window. I've got this beverage next to me that I cooked up from the maple trees and the ginseng out in the forest. And the sun is streaming through the maple leaves through the window. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to be coding for the rest of my life. I think I want to be out there. And by the way, this beverage right here, maybe this is my product, because there's nothing else like this on the shelf right now. Ginseng is been around for centuries. It's well known for immunity, mental clarity and focus, and stress resilience. And yet there's no brand out there that focuses on ginseng as the hero ingredient. And maple water, it's this perfect natural sweetener. So that was the catalyst moment. And I went back to my business coach, Ben, and I'm like, Ben, you're going to hate me for this. We just worked 2 months on this business plan, and I don't want to do it. It's just not in my heart. I'm not feeling it. I think I want to do this beverage. Okay. And Ben's an amazing guy. I thought he was going to be upset, and he looked at me and he said, Brian, I think what you're doing is smart. You're listening to what's in your heart, and there's only good things can come from that. It's always been part of the journey for me. It's definitely something that as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at incorporating my family and my friends and the people around me into that journey in ways that are more and more meaningful. I think that's how I've grown with it. My business partner, Dave, and we used to always joke that the whole reason why we started that company was because we wanted to build our own guitar pedals and expand our guitar collection and amplifier collection. And it worked. I enjoy sharing the stuff that I'm passionate about with people. For me, that's a big thing, is finding the ways to connect with people that are meaningful.
Working with retailers like Guitar Center and I think Sam Ash, and you were kind of applying that to the CPG industry, and I think at one point you were focused on retailers like Whole Foods and Kroger's maybe. But my understanding is that your attitude towards go-to-market and the retailers that you're looking to partner with has kind of changed and evolved a bit over the last few years. Tell me a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, we in the music industry we were very, very successful selling through the big retailers like Sam Ash and Guitar Center and Sweetwater. And we were going up against brands like Fender and Marshall and Gibson, and we did it very, very successfully. The difference between the music industry, which is only about a $9 billion industry, CPG and beverages, and specifically, it's about $300 billion. So it's about 30x the size.
Yeah.
And they don't refer to the buyers as buyers. They're called category managers. And their job is not so much to purchase, it's to manage the portfolio of products on the shelf and optimize the margin, the gross margins, optimize the velocity. Even the way the store is laid out is quite scientific. They want to expand the cart size so that the amount of dollars that people spend at checkout is higher. And there's a lot of science. It's very data driven, and it's a portfolio management type of approach. And it took me a while to really understand that and wrap my head around it. But now when I walk into a grocery store, I can't see it any other way. It's fascinating. I had a mentor who, as I was getting to understand the CPG industry, he said, go to the grocery store, stand in front of the functional beverage shelf, and watch people. And you're going to feel totally awkward when you do this, but no one cares. Just go watch what products do they pick up, what do they put in their cart, what other products do they have in their cart, and start asking them questions. And you really need to get to know the shelf that you intend to sit on, because that's who you're competing against. And you want to be able to absorb the mentality of the category managers who are ultimately making the decision about putting you on the shelf.
Okay. So how has that influenced the way that you're thinking about the different retail partners or go to market?
Yeah, in the music industry, I think we were very lucky because it's a much smaller industry. We got into stores fairly quickly. It's taken us longer to break into those tier one retailers in CPG. And at some point we said, okay, well, it's taking some time for Whole Foods to get on board with this. They tried the beverage, they love it, but they're looking for the data story. They say, this is delicious, this is great. And then they look at the SPINS data, which is the agency that collects all the syndicated data across the industry, and they say, you're not even on here yet. Come back when you have more information that we can base our decision on from a data perspective.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, let's take a step back, and how many independent stores do we need in order to equal a Whole Foods? And it's really not that many. It's like 300, 500 stores. So let's start there. We decided let's own our backyard and focus on the independent stores through the infra and NCG co-op buying groups in the Northeast, and just crush it. And so that's what we did, and we were very successful with it. That's what's resulted in closing in on 1,000 stores. And now we are a top 10 brand for functional beverage in the Northeast. We're the highest growth brand in that region. And so now we can take that model and duplicate it in other regions. And that also gives us a really good foot in the door for the larger tier 1 retail stores.
Okay. So do you think you're at the point now where you have that sales velocity or data story that you need for Whole Foods, or is that still a work in progress?
Yeah. I've got my fingers crossed for sure. And it's a long-term, complex type of sale. Sometimes it'll take 10, 15 different conversations before they'll say yes. And even once they say yes, it could take 6 to 12 months to actually get on the shelf. That's just the way that the industry works. Every large chain store, they have category reviews. And it's on cycle. Like every 6 months to 12 months, they'll review a certain shelf, a certain category, and then they'll look at all the margins, all of the velocities, everything upon that shelf, and rebalance the portfolio of products that they have on there. So you can't really approach them if it's not open review season for them.
Got it. And how, maybe the answer to this question is that it hasn't at all. So, and if that's the answer, please let me know. But how has your analysis on profitability and margins at these different retailers influence this strategy? Because I understand, Whole Foods is notorious for very high trade spend and, promotional spend, which translates to, especially once you bake in all the distributor fees, incredibly compressed margins for a lot of CPG brands. I would expect that the route that you're talking about now, working with these independents, you probably have a significantly better margin. Tell me how margin and profitability is or isn't kind of influencing the thoughts on go-to-market here.
Yeah, you've got it 100% on. The independents they're buying their food co-ops and mom and pop grocery stores. They tend to be more selective about the products that they bring in, and they are, I don't want to say that they're not data driven, because they are, but they have more independence, obviously, in the decisions that they're making. And they tend to bring on products that they personally like and that they're passionate about. They also know their customers very well. So they are a great avenue for a young brand, because they will then take those brands that they like and they put on shelf, and they'll tell their own customers about it. And so the costs are much lower. It takes a little bit more time potentially to get into all those stores individually, but they're really good partners, and we've seen great success with them. The larger retail chains, when they're buying for an entire chain, the second you start working with them, they say, okay, and we're going to expect you to do this amount of free fills and this amount of promos, and the trade spend can get really insane. I've heard stories of trade spend being as high as 40%, which is just nuts. I mean, how do you run a business and spend that much on trade spend to sell through these retailers? So it can be a little bit perilous for an early brand to get in bed too early with these larger stores like Walmart and Kroger and Target. You know, they're all looking out and trying to make win-win situations. But the fact is that they have a lot of buying power, and it's tempting to want to, because it feels like a really big win to get into 3,000 stores all at once, to completely cut your margins to nothing, and that's something that can be really destructive to early brands. Yeah.
I always get absolutely terrified when I talk to founders and they're singularly obsessed with getting into Whole Foods. It's like, some type of validation. You make it onto Whole Foods, you've somehow got a cool brand. I'm actually working with one of my CFO clients at the moment and figuring out how to get out of Whole Foods. They have too large a presence in Whole Foods, and between all the cost inflation they've seen and the ridiculous amounts of trade spend, they're not making any money. Every unit that they sell in Whole Foods is actually happening at a loss. And because Whole Foods underpins a lot of the distribution centers, it's now created this really complicated problem where if we get out of Whole Foods, we may not have the volume going through certain distribution centers to keep those DCs open, which then has flow-on effects for other retailers. And untangling this is a huge mess.
Yeah, the DCs, the distribution centers, that was something that was very new to me in CPG as well. With music products, it was one centralized distribution center, and you could cover the whole country from that. And it was completely new to me that, like, nope, you can't ship to that store because they pull from this particular distributor out of this particular district warehouse. And if you don't have product in that warehouse, then you can't sell to them. And it was like, wait a minute, what this is a chicken or the egg type of scenario, right? It's what comes first. Do you open the DC or do you open the stores? Like, how does that even work?
One of them has to start, right? I think the average consumer would be absolutely horrified to understand how complicated the back end of logistics are of the products that just magically appear on the shelf somehow. It's mind-blowing. So on this topic of profitability, and beverage brands are notoriously expensive businesses to scale, right? This is not a product that does particularly well during e-com. I'm not sure how significant e-com is to your business, but beverages are heavy. They cost a lot to ship. It's not easy doing direct to consumer with a product like this. At the same time, it's time consuming and can be very, very expensive to go through retail. Tell me a little bit about how you're thinking about scaling in terms of, prioritization on profits, profitability versus sales, bootstrapping versus taking outside money and that sort of thing. I guess I was thinking beyond e-com, looking at the e-com business, the Whole Foods and independents we were chatting about earlier. Businesses like yours are notoriously expensive to scale, and I'm curious how you're thinking about profitability versus bootstrapping versus taking outside money. Are you trying to scale the top line at all costs and expecting that you'll need a lot of investor money to do that? Or are you trying to take a lighter approach to outside funding and perhaps trying to achieve profitability a bit earlier than might otherwise be the case?
Yeah, so I raised a seed round, $2 million seed round on a safe note with a $10 million valuation cap. The expectation and the model that I built was that we were going to pursue venture capital and private equity fairly early and put a lot of money into top line growth. That was the expectation. The reality is that once you go from the seed round to a Series A and take institutional capital, you are getting on a treadmill that is not going to stop. You want to be able to raise every 12 to 24 months. You need to do a new fundraise, and the typical pathway is you do your seed round, then you do your Series A, Series B, Series C, so on and so forth, until you get to the exit. And every single round, you want to have higher valuation and a larger capital raise. You never want to have to do a down round or a bridge round. And it can be very, very stressful. And it's... so for us, I was very mindful of, first off, for every percentage that you raise in early rounds, that gets magnified in later rounds. In terms of like dilution.
You're talking about like the dilution magnification, or the compounding effect of dilution, I guess.
Yeah. So the goal in the seed round is to raise as little capital as you need in order to de-risk the business in a meaningful way and get to that next milestone. For us, that milestone was we wanted to have 8 to 10 million in revenue and really meaningful velocity and data story, as well as really solid revenue story.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're not quite there, and we also want a meaningful presence in those tier one retailers. So that was the goal. Yeah. Ultimately, I decided to slow that growth process, pull back on some of our spending, and expand our runway so that we have 3 to 5 years worth of runway, and that we're not rushed into doing a Series A before we're ready. I mean, you really want to make those mistakes early and at a small scale. And when we go to a Series A and raise institutional funding, it's not going to be to like try things out. It's going to be to scale up something that we're very, very confident about, and that is a proven model.
Yeah. You made a really interesting point there about risk and appetite for risk and doing things that you've proven. And one of the, I think, really, really important differentiations that, I recall as a founder, and I was a bootstrap founder, like I never raised any outside capital, but one of the really important differences I remember between taking the path I did and some of my peers who had raised significant amounts of money was the way we thought about risk and what that meant in terms of the sorts of opportunities that we could pursue. When you don't have millions of dollars in the bank account, your appetite for risk is significantly lower, because if things screw up and it doesn't work out, there is no safety buffer. There's nothing in the bank to save you. And if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like that's, not that you're bootstrapped, but that's a little bit closer to the path that you're taking. So I'm curious how you're managing that. Like, how are you projecting the runway? Like, what are some of the financial tools or systems that you're using to make sure that you do have enough cash in the bank and you can get to the place you want to get to?
Yeah, it's very much financial modeling. I found an amazing fractional CFO that I work with to build our financial model, and it's highly sophisticated, and most brands at our level don't really have that type of like a really robust financial model. So and that's the basis of it. So the idea is that we're collecting our sales data internally on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis, and we're always going back and comparing our actuals versus the model and seeing, okay, what did we expect to happen versus what actually happened, and how are we tracking?
Okay. Can we double click on this decision a little bit? Because just purely out of self-interest here, if I can be honest, Brian, I am a fractional CFO, and what I find interesting about you and what you just said is you're a second-time founder. You have evidently gotten to the point where you have acknowledged that you needed some help with these financial projections, and you have gone and engaged someone to do that for you. I have a lot of conversations with first-time founders, and they've never worked with a fractional CFO before. And a big part of that conversation is like, what the heck does a fractional CFO do? I'm basically having to sell them into the idea of actually needing someone like me, let alone, deciding whether I'm the right person for them. So as a second-time founder who has engaged this sort of help, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you knew that was a good thing to do.
Nate, I love this question because I did both things. So in my first business, I bootstrapped, and we never raised a seed round, never raised funding. And at that point, I was that founder who came to you and was like, what does a CFO even do? And, and so in the second time around, it's taken me a long time to understand. Like the first time through, my mentality as a young 24-year-old founder was that I'm not going to go. I need to do this all myself. That I'm not going to go out and find anyone else. I'm just going to figure this out and do it because that's what founders are supposed to do, apparently, which is not true whatsoever. And it wasn't until I was fairly late in the game towards selling my first business that I very much realized that the most successful people out there who are the ones who surround themselves with a really amazing team, really good mentors, really good coaches, really good fractional CFOs. And it just kind of dawned on me looking at my peers and the people who are building businesses alongside of me, that this is what you do if you really want to accelerate your pathway to success. And I'm convinced that if I'd really understood that earlier on, it would have saved me at least 5 years in my journey to where I was going in my music business. Yeah. And so it's so powerful. Things like mentorship and finding that CFO who you can sit down with, who has the experience, has built these financial models before for other businesses, and can help you model out what success is going to look like. And then, I mean, it's so powerful to be able to take that model and introduce it to your team and say, this is where we're going and this is how we're going to do it. And then we're going to go back to this on a periodic basis and assess ourselves. And it gives a really good North Star for decision making as well. How does this affect the metrics that we're looking at with this model? The gross margin and velocity and cash conversion cycle and all of that stuff is baked into that financial model. And why working with someone like you is so pivotal and so powerful.
Are there any other significant differences that you notice in yourself as you contrast, me as a first time, or you as a first time founder versus you as a second time founder?
The thing that comes to mind is what I mentioned earlier, is in finding ways to bring friends and family into that journey. And that's been one of the most rewarding parts of it. My daughter is going on 11 years old now, and she's like, a little person, like she's a little teenager, and
Yeah.
she's watched this whole journey, and I talked to her about the decision making and what I'm thinking, and she knows I'm going on a podcast today, and she's like, "Good luck, Dad." And so she has started her own brand now. She started a lemonade company, and this was inspired for her because she had wanted a puppy dog, and she campaigned for 2 years to try and convince my wife Megan and I to let her get a puppy dog, and she would post. She posted on the living room wall, family meeting tonight, 7:00, and she would give a presentation about why it would be beneficial for us as a family to get a puppy dog, and I as a parent. I hate to say no. I would much rather say, well, if you wanted to do that, how would you go about doing it? And encourage her, like, this is very entrepreneurial mindset that I'm kind of teaching through this process that, okay, I'm not going to say you can't get it. How would you get it? How much is it going to cost? Where are you going to get it? How are you going to take care of it? Who's going to take it for a walk? Who's going to feed it?
Yeah.
And come up with all those solutions. And then if you can solve all that, like, I'm good with that. And so in order to raise the money for the puppy dog, she reached out to my mom, her Grammy, and she asked for a loan.
Okay.
And my mom is so funny. My mom says, "Okay, I'll give you a loan, but what's the collateral? If you don't pay it back within 3 years, I get the puppy dog." And so, and this was over 3 years now. And sure enough, Anna raised all the money and paid back her Grammy. And now we have a little puppy dog, white and fluffy, adorable dog named Sammy.
That is amazing. That is such a cool story. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I have, yeah.
That's you're coming across with some Rich Dad vibes there. So good on you.
Yeah,
when she's ready, we'll have to have her on the podcast, and she can tell.
I love I love that process of bringing the stuff that I've learned and giving it back to others. Because so many people have done that for me along the way. When I went to my first music conference that I went to, we had no idea what we were doing. We snuck our product into the trade show under our jacket, and it was just this box held together with duct tape and the functions written on in magic marker. And there's some people and we just ask for advice and say, "Hey, this is our product. What do you think? How do we build a business?" And some people are like, I don't have time for this. I'm trying to run my trade show booth. And every once in a while, you find someone who's like, you remind me of myself. Let me tell you, son.
Very cool.
And those are blossom into amazing relationships, and those are that's the gold in life.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Brian, you've certainly learned a lot through this entrepreneurial journey of yours, and you've gotten a lot further in it than a lot of the folks who are going to be listening to this episode. For folks who are, maybe a couple of steps further back than where you are today, and they're, figuring out how to finance a business or get into their first, 100 doors or something, do you have any advice for those people? What tips would you give them?
The only person that understands your situation is you. And it's so important to own your own decisions and to also surround yourself with really good teams. Find the people that are going to be your advocate. Find really good mentors. Find really good coaches, and make sure that you are, being a founder, being an entrepreneur. The only thing I can analogize it to is jumping out of an airplane and building your parachute on the way down. It is terrifying, and also at the same time the most exhilarating thing you could ever do. So I think it's important to own that journey and own that process, and at the same time you've really got to love your product and love what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, because otherwise there's a lot of tough moments to go through.
Yeah, I bet. Well, Brian, I've really enjoyed hearing about the story, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your perspectives and everything you've learned through now building 2 of these businesses. Where should folks go if they would like to learn more about you and what you're up to?
I actually put together a discount code on Amazon.
Oh, here we go. Cool.
So profits 25 is the discount code, and if you go on, please go and buy a case of Bare Maple Farms on Amazon. My personal favorite flavor is the yuzu citrus, which I'm drinking right now, and we have ginger, which is the best-selling SKU, lemongrass mint, which was inspired by the lemongrass in the mint growing in my garden. That's a really special flavor, and cran raspberry is this guy right here is our brand new flavor, and that's been very, very popular as well and really good. So, please go on Amazon, buy some Bare Maple, and, this is all about calm, meditative focus and energy from ginseng. Yeah. And it's only 1 gram of sugar, less than 10 calories, super, super healthy. And thank you, Nate, so much for having me on.
Of course, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I'm going to include links to the Amazon product links below, as well as that coupon you mentioned. Are you active on any of the social platforms? Like, is it okay if people
Instagram is
LinkedIn and Instagram? Yep. Okay, it's a place
at
to go.
Bare Maple, at Drink Bare Maple is our Instagram handle.
Okay, perfect, cool. Well, thanks again, Brian. It's been amazing having you on Profits on Purpose. Really enjoyed chatting about your journey and the brand and everything you've been up to. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Nate.